Hi, in the previous tutorial we managed volumes using the command line interface. In this tutorial we will use on-command system manager to basically do the same. So we will thin provision, we will thick provision, and we will look at security styles. And we'll do some other stuff to volumes. So we're logged into our cluster and go to storage. We open our aggregates view and see that we have two data aggregates, one for node 1 and one for node 2. And the second aggregate has some 8.7 gigabytes of available space. We go to volumes and create a volume in the SVM Blue storage virtual machine. We name the volume thin. We choose the second aggregate and let's say it's a SAN volume of 4 gigabytes. And we thin provision it. And after it's created, we check the aggregate and see that it did not reserve 4 gigabytes in the aggregate, even though we created a 4 gig volume. We go back to volumes and create a second volume, which we name thick. In the same aggregate. The size will be 4 gigabytes, but now it is thick provisioned. We check the aggregate again and see that the available space in the aggregate has dropped by 4 gigabytes. Now let's take a look at the two volumes and check the security style and what that means. So we edit the thick volume. A file that's created in a volume will get permissions. These can be Unix type permissions or Windows type permissions in the form of an ACL. The Unix type permissions are stored in something which is called an inode, and the ACL is stored in something which is called an xinode. The security style you choose determines whether Unix permissions are checked or whether the ACL is checked. Now, if you go for mixed, then the type of permission that was checked last will be the active permission type, either Unix or ACL. Mixed is not a very popular setting because this may wreak havoc to Unix permissions if a Windows user changes the ACL in a way that Unix users can no longer access their own files. So most often you either choose Unix type or NTFS type. Obviously Unix type means inode permissions are used and NTFS means xinode permissions are used. So if we go for a Unix type, then we can modify the permissions in the inode to, for example, allow write access to the group. If we go for NTFS, that Unix option is blocked. And if we go for mixed, then we can change the Unix type permissions again. So we choose Unix and save these settings. As we've seen, this volume is thick provisioned. Now let's change that to thin. Let's check the available space in the aggregate and we see that we have 4 gigabytes more of available space than when we had thick provisioned the volume. In the command line tutorial we mounted and unmounted volumes. We can also do that in System Manager, of course. So we go to junction paths and see that the only volume that is mounted is the root volume and it's mounted to /. We mount a data volume by selecting Mount. We select a volume, specify a junction name, let's call it thickvol, and also a path in which to create this junction. Now let's just create it right in the root volume, so directly beneath the /. So the thick volume is mounted to /thickvol in SVM Blue. Now let's move the volume to a different aggregate and the only aggregate available to move this volume to is node 1 agger 1, so we move. We refresh the page and we see that the volume is in a different aggregate now. We moved it from node 2 to node 1, and this will not be disruptive to clients. And we're done.